Anti-government demonstrations in Iran have continued despite the deaths of more than 20 people.
And Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is accusing the country's enemies of stirring unrest. He says the enemies are joining forces and blamed them for the protests that have turned violent.
Now, but the U.S. has dismissed Iranian leaders' contention that the protests were designed by Iran's enemies. On Thursday, armed demonstrators tried to seize police stations and military bases, but they were repulsed by security forces.
The nationwide protests have drawn thousands of people and presents the boldest challenge to Iran's leadership since pro-reform unrest in 2009. Demonstrators say they are angry over corruption and economic hardship in a country where youth unemployment has reached 28.8%. All right, we have Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Analyst, joining us right there via Skype. Good morning and thanks for joining us from Belgium.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ngozi.
Yes, indeed.
Happy New Year. Welcome.
And of course, we have senior researcher in the house, Cyril Abaku. Good morning and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ngozi.
Good to
morning,
see you.
Cyril. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so Hassan Rouhani, the president of Iran, this question is for you, Collins Nweke, is blaming his enemies, including Israel and, of course, the United States for the unrest in Iran. But what do you think really is the fundamental issue why people are pouring to the streets?
Well, the response of Hassan Rouhani and the supreme leader, these are typical response from Iran when things like this happen. Obviously, you don't have to look very far to see where the problem is. The problem rests with the fact that young people who were, really, most of them were really very, very young and were not of election age at the time that the current government was, voted to power. But you see, like you mentioned, they have 28.8%. And that's the official figure, because unofficial figure actually put the unemployment rate at anywhere around 40%. So what that means essentially is that out of every 10 young person, the millennials in Iran, only four of them are unemployed. So you see, when kids do not have any future, when they do not see any perspective, the result is what you see. And very shortly, I hope there will be an opportunity to explore why a country rich in oil, a country that actually sealed a powerful deal with the United States, where sanction was lifted, is still in this sort of economic mess. So the kids are seeing all of this, and for them it's like, I'd rather die than just sit and do nothing.
Okay, Cyril, let me bring you in here. Now, the issue of some analysts have said this could be another Arab Spring coming up, one way or the other. They complained of unemployment, complained of rising prices of food and other, amenities and all of that. But the way they are talking, if you listen to the language of the protesters and demonstrators, it seems it's going beyond just the issue of mere unemployment and all of that. Are we seeing another Arab Spring here?
In fact, if this is not properly handled, we're heading for a major revolution. I say this very advisedly. In the past few days, just a little less than a week when this whole thing, came out, the initial reportage, what the media told us first was that it was protest against corruption, protest against a weak economy, protest against unemployment and so on. But and that it now became political. People are calling for regime change. But I think that basically, the Islamic Republic of Iran that we have today came by revolution, 1979, when the Shah was kicked out. The Shah was backed by the West. And again, you see, so when the revolution came, it ended the Persian era. Now, before that time, that would probably be the second or third revolution that Iran will face. So it is not new. But what should worry us, if we even compare what's happening now to what happened in 2009, is the fact that this current protest They have no leaders. It is just every man for himself. And they are protesting in key Khamenei strongholds. That is Ayatollah Khamenei. The protests are coming from places that are particularly their strongholds. And the protests are people who don't have anything to lose anymore. They are just common people who are saying, look, we are tired of this government. I think that 40 years after the revolution, the government has lost touch with the people. Under Iranian law, to rise up to dare the supreme leader, it's tagged Hiraba, you know, that's the enemy against God, punishable by death. But they've said, you know what, to hell with you.
They're ready to die.
They are ready to die. So it's not something that you look at easily and say, look, and you see, with Donald Trump now tweeting and the US, the government already has a bloody nose. They have lost a sizable chunk of their legitimization. And so what Trump is doing is to put pressure on them. If they cave in, then, because you see, Hassan Rouhani's liberalism again, which led to the what's it called, to the nuclear deal, did not go down with several Iranian nationalists.
Exactly.
Hardliners. Now they are saying that, look, let us even see how, with this protest, if they can get the US, and if the US can get the rest of their allies to say they can, you know, backtrack on the nuclear deal, then the government's right in then the government's strong point would have been weakened effectively. They were in Syria backing what's his name, the Al-Assad, then Gaza, then Lebanon.
Okay, you know what?
All of these things, all of these are meant to make the government look very strong. But people are saying that all these, we are tired of it.
Okay.
Let's bring in Colin Sumweke. Now, we just talked about the Arab Spring. When the Arab Spring happened, it seems like it held some kind of promise. But of course, we know what's happened with Libya, Tunisia, and all of those countries, the contiguous states, where there's a lot of total, complete disharmony and chaos, more or less. Do you think it is possible that Iranians will wake up down the line, maybe 2-3 years down the line, possibly if they succeed in taking Hassan Rouhani out, and regret this protest because they might not even be better off than where they are today?
There are indications indeed that this is a recurring pattern, a pattern where people have a strong appetite for change, and the only thing they want to see at that particular moment is that change. Now, they don't think far enough to say, now, once we get rid of this government that is in power, what is going to be the alternative? I mean, their mindset is not built that way, and anyway, it is a revolution. I mean, no matter how we look at it, this is the beginning of it. And of course, how it is handled will determine how bloody or less bloody it's going to be. Now, like Cyril mentioned, and quite rightly so, this is a revolution that is leaderless. Leaderless in the sense that there are no visible individuals that are calling the shot and saying, you need to do it this way or that way. As a matter of fact, if there is any leader at all, it is the social media, you know, the age where, you know, from one back room in a residential building somewhere, a young man, 15, 16 years old, is directing actions, you know, nationwide. So, yes, for them, the focus is tear down the structure that is responsible for their mayhem, for their suffering, and then what happens afterwards is not something they are worried about. But like you said, it will come to the point that indeed they will begin to say, wait a minute, what have we done here?
All right, Cyril, very quickly before we leave now, we've heard tweets from President Trump, like you mentioned. In part of his tweets, he wrote in capital letter, it is time for change in Iran. Mike Pence, the vice president, also emphasized the same thing. The U.S. permanent representative to the UN, also re-emphasizing that these people have to be helped, they have to be assisted, you know, trying to project and promote what they stand for, kicking against the regime in Iran. When it comes to the support from outside, now we have seen all of what has happened in some of these countries and all of that. What should the West be learning from all of this, and what should other Arab countries also be learning from this?
Well, I have not seen anywhere in the books of political science where anybody has categorically pushed for international interest. What you often hear them talk about is national interest. So even America's interest in Iran and so on is only an advancement of their own interest. But I think that, I mean, after 2009, there was a major clampdown on the press. You'll even hear that some days ago they shut down Instagram, shut down Telegram, and so on. I think those need to be lifted. The important thing is that the democracy, or in a republic, power is taken from, supposedly taken from an elite and given to the people. So the Iranian people should have the right to choose their leaders. The Iranian people should be the ones owning the process. Now, for instance, those people that were arrested in 2009, the Green Movement leaders, that have been under house arrest for so long, should be set free. Then I cannot sit here and say that there should be a military coup. Elections have to come. Elections have to be held. But what is important is that the government needs to reach out to the people and make sure that things are done as
we have to leave it here now. Time is not on our side, but we have to thank you, Cyril Abaku, for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Mike.
A senior researcher, TVC. And Collins Mweke, thank you so much for joining us from Belgium on this analysis. I know that time will come for us to talk about these things as they unfold even more on other issues. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.